They read Fourier and banned books, spoke rashly about the Tsar, imagined a better society. It was not a revolutionary cell in the strict sense. It was a salon of restless minds, exactly the sort of thing an autocracy fears when the police run out of concrete crimes. In April 1849, the arrests began. Dostoyevsky was taken from his apartment, his papers seized and thrown into the grey machine of imperial justice. From April to December, he occupied a prison cell, sharing the air with other men who had thought words were harmless. That summer, in his confinement, he worked on A Little Hero, a faint echo of his earlier style, as if to remind himself he was still a writer, even when numbered among criminals. On September 17th, the commission investigating the Petrushevsky affair concluded its work. 28 men, including Dostoyevsky, were found to have engaged in criminal activities. On September 25th, Tsar Nicholas I appointed a mixed military-civil court to pass sentence under military law. Early November, the judgment. Dostoyevsky and 14 others were sentenced to death by firing squad. Others received lesser terms. The machine turned once more. On November 19th, the General Auditoriate reviewed the case, and Dostoyevsky's sentence was commuted to 8 years of hard labor. That same day, Nicholas I intervened personally, reducing it to 4 years of hard labor, followed by military service as a private soldier, and ordering that the commutation be concealed until the last possible moment. Which brings us back to December 22nd, Semyonovsky Square, the lined-up prisoners, the priest, the shrouds, the snow like ash. The mock execution was not an error or a bureaucratic glitch. It was a performance devised by the Tsar, a pedagogy of terror. Let them feel the muzzle of eternity pressed to their chests, then snatch them back so that every subsequent humiliation will be experienced as grace. In the interstice between death and reprieve, Dostoyevsky's soul cracked open. Later, he would say that in those minutes he lived more intensely than in all the years before. He promised himself, there in the snow, that he would never again waste a moment, that he would love life with a ferocity equal to its cruelty. The vow was both heroic and impossible. It would chase him, and he would chase it through gambling dens, sick rooms, and manuscript deadlines for the rest of his days. On December 25th, they began the journey east. Shackles clamped to his ankles. He was transported toward Tobolsk, then onward to the Omsk stockade, the place that would become the furnace in which both his body and his theology were tempered. 4. The House of the Dead and the Book of the Living, 1850 to 1854. January 9th, 1850, Tobolsk Prison, a way station on the road to Omsk. Between January 10th and 20th, something happened there that he would remember as more miraculous than any reprieve. The wives of exiled Decembrists, N.D. Fonvizina and P.E. Annenkova, visited the condemned men. They brought food, clothing, kindness. Fonvizina gave Dostoyevsky a small volume, the Gospels, with a 10-ruble note hidden in the binding. He carried that book with him into hell. On January 20th, he and his fellow prisoner S.F. Durov were transferred to Omsk, arriving January 23rd. The stockade was a world where the human body was stripped to its bare functions, to endure cold, hunger, physical labor, infestation, contempt. Murderers, thieves, fanatics, peasants who had snapped under the weight of their own lives, all thrown together in a barracks that stank of unwashed clothes and unconfessed sins. For 4 years, he slept on a plank, his legs shackled, surrounded by men who hated intellectuals and noblemen with a hatred that had nothing abstract about it. He learned to keep in the background, to observe, to listen. His health, already fragile, deteriorated. The first clear signs of epilepsy appeared, sudden falls, convulsions that left him exhausted, tears in his eyes, a strange, blissful terror in the moments before he lost consciousness. And yet, in that cesspit, he encountered a vision of human beings stripped of all the illusions Petersburg loved. He saw the pride of the murderer, the humility of the beggar, the strange solidarity that sprang up among men who shared nothing but disgrace. He rehearsed theatrical performances for Christmas. He learned that even in shackles, men will memorize lines, joke, flirt with the idea of beauty. The gospel volume never left him. He read it not like a pious provincial, but like a jurist scrutinizing evidence in a case where he himself stood accused. Christ, in that barracks, was not a plaster icon, but the only possible ally of the utterly degraded. If anyone could prove to me, he would later say, that Christ was outside the truth, and it really was so that the truth was outside Christ, then I should prefer to remain with Christ rather than with the truth. The sentence is illogical, extravagant, scandalous, and entirely logical for a man who has seen what truth looks like when reduced to power. On January 23, 1854, his prison sentence ended. He was not freed, he was reshaped. Enlisted as a private soldier, he was transferred to the 7th Siberian Line Battalion in Semipalatinsk by late February. April brought a small widening of space. He was allowed to live in private quarters. In that provincial town on the edge of the empire, he met Alexander and Maria Isaev. Maria would become his first wife, his first domestic torment. 5. Love, illness, and the first diagnosis, 1854 to 1859. Maria Isaev entered his life not as an erotic ideal, but as a problem, a married woman, trapped in a difficult, often humiliating situation with her husband Alexander, a minor official, drunk, feckless, chronically ill. Dostoyevsky, himself poor, disgraced, not yet rehabilitated, became their friend, then their helper, then something more ambiguous. The attraction was part rescue fantasy, part spiritual kinship, part stubborn determination to prove that he too could be loved. By late November 1854, Baron Alexander Wrangel arrived in Semipalatinsk. He was young, well-connected, generous. He introduced Dostoyevsky to local society, gave him a circle in which he could occasionally feel like more than an ex-convict in a faded uniform. That winter, Wrangel and Dostoyevsky talked through the long Siberian nights about literature, Russia, Europe. Somewhere in those conversations, the novelist who had gone silent in Omsk began to stir again. In May, the Isaev family moved to Kuznetsk in Tomsk province. Late July, Dostoyevsky and Wrangel made an unauthorized trip to visit Maria in Kuznetsk. He was breaking regulations for the sake of a feverish courtship. On August 4th, Alexander Isaev died. Freedom opened for Maria like a trapdoor. By late November, after nearly 2 years of vacillation, quarrels, reconciliations, she accepted Dostoyevsky's proposal. They were married on February 6, 1857, in Kuznetsk. In mid-February, they traveled back to Semipalatinsk. In Barnaul, where they spent a night, he had a serious seizure, so severe that a local doctor finally wrote the word epilepsy. It was as if the illness, long lurking, chose the wedding journey to present itself formally. Epilepsy, for Dostoyevsky, would never be merely a medical condition. It was an experience of time being torn. Moments before a seizure, he often felt an almost unbearable clarity, a sense that the universe had rushed into focus, every sound, every color saturated with absolute meaning. Then the convulsion, the blackout, the mouth bitten, the body shamed by its own helplessness. It was a parody of ecstasy and a foretaste of death, a visitation both mystical and degrading. His later descriptions of Prince Myshkin's fits in The Idiot are less invention than autobiography transfigured. On April 17, 1858, his rights as a hereditary noble were restored. Along with the social status came a crucial legal benefit, the right to publish again. The same year, his story A Little Hero appeared, unsigned, in Otechestvenie Zapiski. On December 21st, the medical officer of his regiment submitted a report listing the course of his illness, noting epileptic fits since 1850, recurring frequently since 1853, and recommending release from service. By early March 1859, Dostoyevsky petitioned Tsar Alexander II for discharge on grounds of ill health. In March, Uncle's Dream appeared in Ruskoe Slovo. On March 18th, he was formally released from the army and ordered to live under police surveillance in Tver, a provincial purgatory. But the doors of literature were open again, and he had a new subject, one no one else in Russia possessed: the inner life of a man who had died once already and kept being resurrected.